Hello, hello, hello. As you can tell from the title of this video, something happened to me recently, and I just wanted to explain to you the full incident of what happened, show you the evidence I had, and just give a lot of details of what happened during the aftermath, what reporting it was like. Because I think there is a lot to learn from this type of thing, and also talk about the wider implications from the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, some of the myths based on my kind of injuries and things like that. So that's basically what this video is going to be about. So this happened about a month ago. It was the 19th of December. So it's technically Monday, but it was at midnight, so it was for the Sunday night kind of. So what happened was there was a knock on my bedroom door, and it was my brother. He knocked on the door, said my name, and then I yelled out saying, "What is it?" And then he didn't answer, so then I went to the door, opened the door, and then he was standing kind of far away. He was asking me if anything had been delivered to the house, and I said no, and then he said okay, and I said is that all you wanted? And then he was like, yeah, and everything was fine, and we left it at that, and it was all okay. So then a few minutes later, I texted him saying, you could have just asked me through the door instead of making me come out, because I was basically saying that he could have yelled out what his question is. If it was just a simple question like that, he could have just said it through the door instead of making me get up and answer the door, if you know. So that's basically why this incident happened, okay? And then he said, no, I'll come in, and I said, why? He said, to see you and stuff. And then he kept asking me the question, did stuff get delivered? And then I said no a few times, and then I said, what stuff? Today? No, it's Sunday. And he just kept asking me, what do you want? Question mark. He kept asking me the question of if there were any deliveries. Actually, when he says, what do you want? Question mark. He says my name, and then there's a point where he came back, opened the door to my room, and I was under the covers, and then he just stood there for a minute, didn't say anything, and then that's why he says, why hide? And again says, is there deliveries? And then I answered saying no, and then he says, really? Okay, I'll leave you alone. Seriously, what's wrong with you? You like everything wrong? Question mark. Some stuff say delivered. Do you want me in your room or leave you alone? What's wrong? And then I respond saying, what else you want from me? I already told you. So I was basically just getting annoyed with him because he kept asking me the same question over and over again about the deliveries, because it's not gonna, I didn't lie about there not being any deliveries. So yeah, I didn't know what else to say to him aside from that. I again texted him, no delivery, and then he said okay, and at that point I think he made his peace with the fact that I don't know about the deliveries, so I think that at that point he was done with that topic. At that point, after he said okay, he said, I want you to be happy also, eat right, see people, be helpful. Do you want me to force you? Because you are so annoying. And then at that, I hadn't seen a lot of these messages because he's kind of talking to himself for about 20 minutes. And then he says, hello, hi, I'll come in and hit you. I didn't see this last message. And then that's when he at some point came in. He opened the door like with a lot of force, and then he was like pulling the duvet off of me, and then I wasn't sure what was happening, because this is the first incident of assault between us. Nothing like this has ever happened, so I didn't really know what was going on exactly. He did threaten to hit me, but I didn't really believe him because it hadn't happened before. My laptop went across the room and he said, I'll take your stuff, something like that. I tried to run away at some point, but I couldn't get out because he stopped me. I was then like trying to think of like what was the best solution for the moment, and then I was thinking like I need to make sure that I have my phone on me, and I didn't know where the phone was because a lot of stuff got moved around when he came in, so I was just trying to figure out where my phone was, and then I was thinking like when I was trying to get out, I was like pushing him away, and then he was like saying, are you stupid? I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you. And then he was like pushing me down, and then he closed the door. I saw my phone at some point, and then I kicked it under the bed to make sure that he didn't see it or take it away from me. And then he came back, and then he hit me. I don't exactly remember like when he did it, but because like in the beginning it was like very chaotic, everything that was happening, so I don't remember the first part of it. But when he first punched me, I was thinking about if people would believe me if I were to tell the story. So that's what I was mostly thinking about in the moment. I decided not to like try to run away and just like take it, because I thought in the long term that would make the most sense, and I didn't like want to run out into the street, and like I was just trying to figure out what the plan should be in that moment, and it didn't seem like a good idea to run away, so I just thought, let me just sit here and do whatever he tells me to do, and then hopefully like finishes quickly, and then I'll see what I'm gonna do afterwards. And that was basically my plan. Early on in the attack, he mentioned a text message that he sent to me before where he said, seriously, what's wrong with you? You like everything wrong, ? He said the same thing again. He said, you like everything wrong, like Amber Heard, you like her. And then I said yes, like he had me by the hair, and like was pushing me down and said that. And then he was like, she's stupid and you're stupid, and Johnny Depp didn't do anything wrong. And then he started punching me in the head. And then he was asking me a lot of questions. Like that's basically what this whole thing was. It was like he's just interrogating me about a bunch of stuff. For example, there's a text message about like eating right, and then he was asking me about the type of food that I eat, and then I said that I eat like tofu, and then he was like asking me about what's tofu, and then I would explain what it is, and then he would punch me. And then because I said it was like soybeans, and it's like, and then he would say, you say that's beans, it's not soybeans, or it's not tofu, you call it beans, not tofu. And then he was punching me based on that. And then like for other questions, like I'm like forced to answer these types of questions against my will. He's like forced me to be there. And then we were going on and on about stuff like that. And he would repeat the same question over and over again. And then if I didn't answer fast enough, he would like punch me, or it was a mixture of like both slapping me and punching me, but mostly punching me. And it was mostly on the side of the head, but sometimes directly in the face. It also I couldn't tell that when he hit me directly in the face, the difference between a slap and a punch. It kind of felt the same way. He used a lot of force, I think, but I couldn't really tell the difference based on the feeling. And the only reason I can tell that it was like a difference between a slap and a punch was because of the trial. I was paying attention to what his hand looked like beforehand. I could tell when he had used an open hand or if he had a fist, and those aren't really things I would pay attention to normally if it weren't for the trial. I don't think so. That's something that was interesting, that I can tell the difference based on the feeling. Because he was like mainly punching me on the side of the head, I was concerned about there not being any obvious bruising, and thinking about like if people would believe my story, because like the topics we were talking about just seemed really silly, and I was like, would people like believe the story? And he doesn't have like a history of violence. He's not known to be a violent person. So, and I didn't see the text message where he threatened to do it, so the whole time I was like, if I explain this to people, what would they think? So that's mainly what my thought process was at the time. During the attack, I wasn't really afraid of him. I wasn't very emotional or anything. I think it was like when he was asking me these questions, I just went along with it. It felt like it was just like a performance kind of thing. Like I felt like I was just playing along with what he wanted. I think sometimes I would act more scared than I was. I didn't feel like there was any real threat of danger at the time based on our relationship. I didn't think he would kill me or anything like that, or that I would have that serious an injury. So the only thing I was thinking was like, what am I gonna do next? Like, should I report it? Because I was just like trying to think of the long-term things, like what am I gonna do? It's like it's just something that's really gonna overcomplicate things at the moment. So that's basically what my thought process was, and I just wanted to make the whole thing end as quickly as possible. So that's why I was just like sitting there trying to go along with it, and I was also thinking about because I think I did want to report it at some point, and the reason why was because of the thing he said about Amber Heard. When he hit me, he said that Johnny Depp didn't do anything wrong, and that was like, it really confused me in the moment. And I was trying to think, like, what does he mean by that? And I want to give you some background on the types of things that he said about that when we talked about this topic in the past. So when we first talked about the trial, I said that I was on Amber Heard's side, and then he said that he didn't believe her because when something like that happens, you report to the police. And then I said that's not true. And then I linked it to my dad because at one point back in the day, my sister reported him to the police, but nothing happened really. And I was explaining to him, like, sometimes you don't want to get the person in trouble and stuff like that, and it makes sense why she didn't go to the police and things like that. So then he said that I shouldn't be comparing those two things, and I said why, and he never fully explained like why those two things aren't comparable. And then I ended up yelling at everyone, and I stormed out. Anyway, he at some point started watching the testimony, and he sent me messages saying, I get why you believe her. I believe her in a lot, but do you think it's a justice court's problem, ? And I said that the jury members were stupid. And then he said, is it like people judging how women, like how females act, that people are harsher about women's body language, stuff like that. And he was sending me messages about that, and he said that I shouldn't say that the jury members are stupid. And then he said that he believed the story about her injuring him with a bottle. And then he's like, the truth is, even if she was being violent, it's okay. He didn't sue her for that or write an op-ed for that. So don't act like she's perfect. So I think he's saying like it's okay if she's violent, maybe like in self-defense, or something like that, or that the violence isn't related to, because he's suing her for defamation, not for assault, so it's irrelevant if she was violent in that instance. It wouldn't make a difference. But yeah, that's basically, from what we can tell here, he does believe Amber Heard for the most part. To be clear, that's what he said at that point. So going with this idea, like he does believe most of the stories. Like if he believes that Johnny Depp did beat Amber Heard up, and he has said that to me in person. Like we talked about face to face, and he said even if he did beat her up, it doesn't matter. Like he has said stuff like that to me. And then he's saying, I said that he's blaming her for no reason, and he said no, he's not blaming her. All he wants to do is act again and make money. And he's saying she stopped him from doing that. Do you agree? And I say nope. And then he says, why not? We also talk about the thing about the nanny stealing $5, and he says, and he was kind of responding like he believed the story, and he then says to me, even if it is a lie, in the text it says he says like, even if he did lie, everyone lies, so what? So from this you can tell what he's saying is that even if Johnny Depp committed these crimes, nothing, and he shouldn't face any consequences, and that's just what he believes. Like that's what his viewpoint on it is that he believes Amber Heard's accusations are true, but that Johnny Depp shouldn't face any consequences for his actions, and that Amber Heard stopped him from being able to act and make money because she spoke about it. And I just wanted to be like very clear and explain to you how some people were looking at this case and what they really think, because there are a lot of people on Johnny Depp's side who feel this way, who think that what she's saying is true, but still don't want him to face any consequences, and still think that she did a bad thing by speaking out. So I just wanted to explain that to you, so that we're all on the same page. Anyway, going back to the attack, so it was just like he was questioning me about a lot of stuff, and like it was like an interrogation type thing. He wouldn't let me go, and he just kept punching me over and over again, mainly on the side of the head and the face. And then and it was like, it didn't really matter what I was gonna do. Like nothing I did would have had an effect. Like, if I looked away from him, he would punch me. If I rolled my eyes, he would punch me. Like, it didn't really make a difference. If I answered too slowly, he would punch me. Like, and it really did seem like, it seemed so fake, and like, for him, like, it seemed like such a performance. It was very unusual way he was acting, and it seemed like it was based on nothing. Like, it wasn't, we were in separate rooms. It wasn't really provoked by anything that I did. He had a lot of time to think about what he was gonna do. At some point during this, I was mainly sitting on the bed, and he was like on his knees in front of me. That's how it was positioned. At one point, I ended up on the floor, and then he was like kind of in front of me on the floor, and then he hit me on the floor as well. And I remember, because I don't remember how I got on the floor, but I remembered that my hair was in my face, and he told me to take my hair out of my face, and then he told me to sit back on the bed. I don't remember what reason I ended up on the ground, but yeah. And what else? Yeah, he just kept asking me a bunch of questions over and over again. Like, I wasn't really afraid of him, but I was just doing what he told me to do, just to like make the thing end as quickly as possible. Like, I just wanted the interaction to be over as quickly as possible. This whole thing lasted for about like an hour. The reason why I know is because he sent the message, "I'll come in and hit you at 1:45, and then I took a screenshot of the message at 3:25, so it was about like an hour and a half. He ended up leaving the room at some point, when we were, I think it was because we were talking about tofu or something. I told him to look up what tofu is, look up what soybeans is, and I said, get your phone. And then at some point he left the room to get something, I don't know what. And at that point I went to find my phone under the bed and put it in my pocket that zips up, like in case I should run out or anything. But I was just trying to make sure that my phone was safe and that it was on me, just in case. So I just remember that part. He came in. There wasn't enough time to like leave, but he left to get his phone, and then he came back. He was asking me some more stuff. Yeah, but this was all for like an hour. There was a lot of talking in between, so he wasn't like pounding on me for an hour straight. That's not what I'm saying, because there was just a lot of talking in between. But you know, he was punching me a lot during that time. But yeah, that was it. And then he left, and when he left the door wide open, and he said, like, don't close this door ever again. And then he walked away. So then I closed the door, and then he came back and he opened the door wide again, didn't say anything, and then he walked away. And then I went back and then closed the door, and then it stayed closed, and that was it. So it ended around like 3:25ish, and that's when I got my phone out and took a screenshot of the final message, because I hadn't seen any of these messages before. And that was that. So the next thing that I did was, like, I was just trying to figure out what I should do, if I should report it, what would happen if I reported it. And I had that screenshot, and I put a story on Instagram just asking random people for advice, and I wanted someone to explain to me step by step what would happen if you report this type of thing to the police, and ask them if my evidence would be enough, because at the time I didn't really have that much bruising. or swelling, on visible swelling or anything like that, from what I could tell, because it was mostly that he was punching me in the head, so I didn't really see, it didn't look that bad when I looked in the mirror, so I was like, maybe people wouldn't believe my story if I explained it. So I was just trying to see what people were saying to me, get their advice on that type of thing. I decided to report it that day. Like, I thought about it for a few hours, and then I sent like an online submission for the police, and explained the story briefly on the form and filled out all the information. And then it says that they'll try to get back to you within 48 hours. So I was just like waiting to hear back from them. So I took a picture of my face. Like, I had a black eye kind of, but it wasn't that bad looking. So I took a picture of that. I never iced my face. Because I didn't really have that, there wasn't that much swelling on my face, a little bit on my forehead, but it could be covered up by hair, but it wasn't that bad. Like, this type of bruise can easily be covered up with makeup. It wasn't that bad. I didn't have any, like, even though I was directly hit in the face, I didn't have a puffy face exactly. There was pain in like my teeth, on my head, because that's where I was mostly hit, on the side of the head. That's mainly where the pain was. I also had like a few hours afterwards, I blew my nose and blood came out, and I was thinking if I should take a picture of like the bloody tissue, but I was like, it doesn't really prove much, like, so yeah. But anyway, yeah, ages afterwards, I, like 12 hours after this attack, I blew my nose and blood came out. I don't think he hit me directly in the nose, like, it was just like the side of my face, like the left side of my face, but yeah, the blood did come out, and I don't think he broke my nose, but that's what happened. And that's pretty much it for the injuries on my face. It really didn't look that bad. I was able to go out the next few days, and it wasn't that bad. And the pain was like manageable. I didn't take any pain medicine or anything. It was okay. I didn't need to take paracetamol or anything like that. I didn't go to the doctor because I was looking to see if I should, and it's hard to get an appointment with my GP, because you have to call at a certain time. So I felt like there's kind of no point in doing it, because my injuries just aren't that severe to me to have to see a doctor. So I didn't see a doctor for it. Yeah, but that was pretty much all. Yeah, that's all that I had, like, for the... I felt soreness all over my body, but it was like... but it didn't really look that bad. Like, I think when I explained to people, like, this thing happened for, like, about an hour, and that I was punched repeatedly for, like, a long time, for a bunch of times, I was like, would that be believable? Because that's all I have is this like little black eye. Like, maybe people wouldn't believe my story if I explained that to them. So that's, yeah. But this really is all it was. There wasn't any proper swelling. It just didn't look that bad. Later on, I also discovered a pretty big bruise on my thigh. I don't remember where this would have happened. He never like hit me in this location. I think possibly when I was like trying to ran out. Maybe I banged against something, but I have no memory of how I got this bruise. And it was really large. It took up like half my like thigh. And there's a picture of it the day that it happened, and then a picture of it 3 days later. So it got bigger, and then it changed color, and that's it. There was a point where he punched me with both fists on the stomach and the back, but it didn't leave any bruises. I don't think he punched me hard enough to cause a mark. And maybe that was the reason why I ended up on the floor. I don't remember exactly, but that happened. And when I spoke to the police about it, I was saying to them everything that happened, and I said that he hit me on the head and the face upwards of 30 times. I said like minimum 30 times, but I don't remember exactly how many. I didn't keep count, but that's what I was thinking. Like it was a lot of times, and back to back. So I just gave a rough estimate, but it could be a lot more than that. Not exactly sure, but that's basically everything that happened. Yeah, and I don't fully remember like why I have that bruise on my thigh. And it's interesting that was a large bruise. And I don't remember it. I'm maybe like knocked against something one time and it caused that bruise, but then when I'm hit in the face directly like that many times and the head that many times, you don't really see too much evidence of it. It doesn't really show up as being that bad. So I thought that was an interesting thing, but like that's all I had to show for the injuries, especially on my face, because I think people would expect you to look much worse if someone's hit you that many times, but in my case that wasn't what happened. The next day, I got a text message from one of my sisters saying that she was going to see my mum at the hospital, and she wanted me to come with her, and she said, I'll pick you up in around an hour. And then I said, okay, but I said, okay, I need to talk to you about something really important also. Can you be trusted? And she said yes, and I said, okay, I'll see you soon. And then she came to pick me up, and then we went to the hospital together, and we went in to see my mom. And then when I got in, I had no makeup on or anything, so you could see the black eye. And my mom was like, what happened? She saw the injury and she was asking me about it. And then the nurses and stuff told us to leave for a bit. So me and my sister went out, and then I explained the story to my sister, and I gave her my phone to see the text messages leading up to it. And she was really surprised that this happened, and she was like, that I don't understand, the story doesn't make a lot of sense. And she was just asking me like, why did it happen, because it seems like it just kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't really based on anything, and she was just trying to figure out like what his motivation was for it. And then she was saying, she said that she wanted to talk to him about it, and I said that I didn't want her to talk to him about it. And the reason why I didn't want her to talk to him about it was because I reported him to the police behind everyone's back. And at that point, I was just trying to, when I was speaking to her, I just wanted to see what her response was, to see if she really could be trusted, and what she thought his repercussions should be for his actions, like what she thought the right thing should be to do. And with her, she just seemed to say, like, she was just focused on like it not happening again. And she said, I'll talk to him, I want to see, like, I'm gonna tell him, like, you shouldn't do that sort of thing. And then I said, like, do you really not think that he knew not to do it, and that you, like I was just trying to get her to understand, like, that talking to him isn't the right thing to do, and that he needs someone to explain to him that it's not the right thing to do. Like, he doesn't need that. And also, during the attack, I asked him directly, like, if what he was doing was an impulsive decision, if he was making a mistake by hitting me, and he said no, that it wasn't a mistake. He knew what he was doing. That he was in control, and he, like, it was a purposeful choice, and he knew what he was doing, was basically what he said to me. So that's why I felt like, yeah, that's not what the reason why he did what he did was because he believes that people shouldn't have consequences for this type of action, and nothing that she says is going to change his mind on that. And that's why I didn't see the point of her speaking to him. And then she was saying to me that, like, she's so persuasive, and that she's going to convince him that he's wrong, and that he's really going to believe in that. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I think he's just, like, too far gone. And she kept going on about, like, how he doesn't have a history of violence, that he's able to control himself. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And that's more of a reason, like, why he should face consequences, because he made a conscious choice to do this, even though he knows what I think about this topic. He still wanted to do it anyway. And anyway, we were just going back and forth on that, and I didn't really like anything she said, and I kind of decided that she really couldn't be trusted, because it just seemed like she would want to protect him, and she doesn't want him to get in any serious trouble for this type of thing. When I spoke to her, I didn't really seem that sad about what happened. I just it was kind of a casual conversation, and she was just really confused about it, and I gave her my phone a few times because she kept wanting to, like, look over the conversation, and she's like, this is so weird, like, that's what she kept saying over and over again. And then looking at the messages, she's trying to think about, like, what did I do to, like, provoke this kind of, like, because he doesn't have that violent history. So she's like, what, like, set him off? And looking at the messages, he said to me, like, he said something like, cause you are so annoying. And then she was like, oh, do you have, like, an annoying personality? And she was kind of, like, laughing at that. Like, so it didn't seem like, it was kind of lighthearted. She didn't take it that seriously, and because the visible bruise that I had, it didn't look that severe. I think that was part of the reason why she didn't think it was that big a deal. And it seemed like a small thing to her, it seems, but at the same time she was saying that he's in the wrong, he did a bad thing, like, that's kind of what she was saying, but it just seemed very empty, like, and at the same time, maybe it's because of the way I was speaking to her, I didn't seem that sad about it, maybe that's why she was speaking that way. Anyway, I told her that I didn't want her to talk to him about it. I just wanted to, like, lay low and not speak to him very much in the coming days until I heard back from the police. So that's why I was like, don't say too much, don't bring too much attention to it, just leave her alone. And then I sent her a picture of, like, the bruise on my thigh and the picture of the message as well. And then she was like, I really want to talk to him about it. And I was like, I just don't see the point. And then eventually, I was saying to her, like, she should really think about what she says to him. And because if she's going to say something pointless, there's no need. And she texted me that she's going to say, I'm going to say he has no right to do that. And that was it. I was like, okay, tell him whatever you want tonight if you must. And then she didn't end up speaking to him that day. And then she said that she spoke to him the next day. And during this time, I was trying to communicate with the police, and they ended up getting back to me like 2 days after I sent the online thing. And they said that they need to see me and meet with me to talk about it. And then I ended up meeting with them on Thursday, and I explained the full stories to the police, and I gave them the pictures of the bruises and explained fully what happened, like all that, sent the screenshots of the messages, and I was trying to explain to them that that was the full incident, like, because when I told the story, they were asking me, like, does he do drugs? Does he use alcohol? Does he have a mental illness? And I said no to all of that. That's not what this is about. He has no history of violence. And I think it was good that I had the messages to show that it wasn't really provoked by anything that I did. It was just kind of, I don't know what it was, but it's not like, it wasn't a fight or anything like that. It was him making a choice to attack me for no reason. And it seemed like it was based on nothing, like this whole delivery thing. It wasn't really based on much. They were asking me if he had a history of being controlling, because he was like, I want you to do as I say, stuff like that. And I said, no, there's no pattern of this kind of behavior. We barely speak to each other most of the time. I don't really see him very much. And I was explaining all of that to them as well. They took my statement and asked me like where he worked so that they could arrest him, and I didn't know where he worked, but I gave them times for when they could come by, and they said that they would do it that day, but then they didn't, and they ended up coming the next day and the next night, and that's when they arrested him. And my sister sent me a message after I spoken to the police, where she said that she did speak to him, and the message reads, I spoke to him, he said he's not going to do it again, and we were talking about a different topic, so I hadn't brought it up, and then she just sent me that message, and I didn't really respond to it, and that's not really what I wanted from this situation. I don't want like a promise to not do it again or anything like that. I don't want an apology. That's not what I was interested in, so that's why I didn't really say anything back to that message. And behind her back, I was like speaking to the police and doing all this stuff, and I knew that she would not approve of that kind of thing, and I just kept it to myself. The police also wanted to like get her information, and I told them that she couldn't be trusted, because I know what she's like, and that was pretty much it. So then I called my sister the next morning to explain to her what happened, that he'd been arrested, and then she was like, why? And I said, because of what happened. And then she was like, but why would you report him? And she was really upset with me, and then she was yelling at me and saying like, this is not the right time for this, because my mom's in the hospital, it's not the right time to do this type of thing. And she was like, and she was saying to me, I was on your side before, but now I'm not. And she was like, don't come to me for anything ever again. And she was like really yelling at me, and then I said okay, and I didn't really say that much. I was just like letting her get it out of her system, and then I brought up the fact of like what he said to me about Amber Heard in the past. Like I said, isn't he the person who said that if something like this happens, you're supposed to report to the police? Like that's what he had previously said. And then she was kind of annoyed with me that I brought that up, and like it's like because they haven't really explained to me like what's the difference between this and that. Why would my situation be different, and like why am I not supposed to report it, and does she have this why does Amber Heard have this expectation of that she should report it, and if she didn't report, then that means that she lied. But anyway, that's what I was saying. I was saying that I was doing what he said that you're supposed to do, and I didn't see the difference in it. And I was trying to explain to her, like, what does he expect? What did he expect if he did it to me? I kept saying the word "me" to her over the phone. Like really me? Did he really not think that I was gonna report him? Did he really think that I was not gonna do anything about this? And I was like, what did he expect? And she was like, not this. And I'm confused. I was really confused as to what she expected. And she was saying to me that I was selfish. And I was saying to her, like, I'm not a stranger to these people, and like they know what I'm like. They know like this self-centered thing that I'm being accused of. Like, they know what I'm like, and they should have known what my next move was gonna be, that I would like prioritize myself, because that's the type of person I am. And I was like, this shouldn't have been news to anyone. Everyone should have been able to anticipate what I was going to do. And she just got really annoyed with me, and she ended up hanging up. And then I was on my way to see my mum in the hospital, and she called my mum to explain that I got him arrested. And then when I got there, my mum was like yelling at me, and she's like, you have to take it back, you have to drop the charges. And they were both kind of pressuring me to drop the charges, and my mom was like, I'm in the hospital, you have to do it now. So they were all like pressuring me in that moment. So then I ended up like sending an update on the online form thing, saying that I wanted to drop the charges because they wouldn't like stop until I sent the message. So then that's what I ended up doing, and then I said, okay, I'll drop the charges. I had some conditions for dropping the charges, which they agreed to, and that's what I ended up doing in the end. So I sent them that message, I sent the police that message, but it was like Christmas Eve, and then she was, my sister had to like deal with like getting him out, and he was supposed to stay with her for the next like 72 hours or something. Like, you're restrained from that person for a few days, and then you can make it longer if you want to, but then we just left it at that. So he was just staying with my sister for a while, and my sister was saying to me on the phone, like, that she thought I was up to something. She thought I was being sneaky. She said that I waited until the weekend to get him arrested, and then I said, no, that's not what happened. I reported him the day that it happened. Before I saw her, before I spoke to her, I had already reported him, and I explained that to her. And then she said that I kept it from her, and I was being sneaky. And I was like, I didn't want to say to her that she couldn't be trusted, but that's basically what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, I was kind of being sneaky about it. That's true. I agreed with her, like, I was being sneaky in the way I went about it, but it was just because I knew that they wouldn't approve of what I did. But yeah, that's basically what happened. And afterwards, like, everyone was like really upset with me because I reported it, and they kept saying like, you're both just as bad as each other. She was saying that I was being vindictive, and like, because I was like ruining his life over this, is going to affect his reputation. These are some messages she sent to me after the fact, after I'd already like said that I was going to drop the charges. This is what we said after the fact, and like, she was saying I was ruining his life, and I said no, he ruined his life because he made a choice, and he's the one that committed a crime. And she says, yes, so his life should be over, question mark. What is wrong with you? He isn't a stranger. And I said, his life isn't over. And then she's like, if you carry on with this, he could lose his job. He wouldn't find another job. And I said, he made a choice. And she's like, it will affect everything. So you're no better than he is. You're both wrong. So I would be in the wrong with him because I chose to report his crime. And that's kind of what she believes. And I just wanted to show you like these types of messages, because when it comes to the Amber Heard thing, like from the very beginning, I was saying to you, like, it wouldn't matter even if people did believe that he did it. I don't see people not calling her the things that they were calling her. Like, it wouldn't really affect, like, calling her sneaky and manipulative and all that stuff. Like, you could say all those things to someone who is also telling the truth. And I really wanted to show you that, like, for me, in my case, I would agree, like, with what my sister said in me being sneaky and manipulative in the way I went about reporting it. And I feel like that's kind of something that you need to be able to do when you exit an abusive type thing, because that's kind of how it goes. Like, with the reporting to the police, it didn't happen that you call the police and they automatically take care of it. Sometimes you have to wait in between, and then in the in-between times when I was waiting for them to get back to me, I was like, am I kind of like being dishonest because I was never really afraid of him? Should I report him because I wasn't ever really afraid of him? And stuff like that. Like, those are things that you think about. Like, the reason why I would be reporting him was because I was on this kind of belief that he should have repercussions for his actions, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to do it. It wasn't exactly for my safety. It was just because I felt like he did what he did because he thought he could get away with that, and I didn't want him to think that he could get away with it, and that's the only reason why I ended up reporting it. But I think for a lot of people, they don't want to report things unless they really think that their life is in danger, or if it's like a real safety issue. And there is a little part of me is like, maybe I am doing it to be vindictive and stuff like that. Like, if like it's kind of a complicated thing, so that's why the criticisms that people were giving to Amber Heard, I was like, you would say the exact same things to someone who you know for a fact is telling the truth, and we've seen that for other people like Megan Thee Stallion and stuff like that. Like, you say that type of these adjectives that you use to describe these people, it makes no difference whether they're telling the truth or if they're lying. So none of her words had any like weight to me. I wasn't like upset at anything she said. I always expected like that to be what she said. So yeah, I just wanted to explain to you the way people react when you report that kind of thing. So when I spoke to my sister, she was kind of like insulting me on the phone, like the first day when this all kind of happened, when she was yelling at me. She was like agreeing with my brother's criticisms of me, like my annoying personality and stuff, and she was kind of saying that I'm being malicious in reporting him, but what he did wasn't malicious. And she said that she agreed with like it was like his heart was in the right place, but he went about it the wrong way. And I was like, okay, I don't see that. And she said like, don't you see that? I was like, I don't see that at all. And then we hung up because we just don't see eye to eye on that issue. So we just kind of like left that alone. And then I saw my other sister the next day, and she didn't know about anything that had happened. I hadn't told her any of this stuff, so she wanted to hear the story. She had a friend with her that I don't know, and she wanted to speak to me with him. and he's a stranger, so I didn't really like know what to say. So I went up to speak to her, and she was kind of like talking over me a lot, and she was like, you need to drop this, and she was like she wouldn't like let me answer, and she said that you should have put this aside, my mom's in the hospital, she doesn't need the stress, you shouldn't have told her this stuff. And I said to her that my mom asked me about it because she saw my injury, she saw the black eye, and she asked me what happened, and she said that I shouldn't have told her what happened. I was like, that doesn't make sense. And she didn't even know like the full story, and she was saying all this stuff to me, and then she was like yelling at me at some points, and then she was trying to talk more softly, and then I kind of stormed out because I didn't want to talk to her anymore. And then because with the bruise on my face, because it was kind of minor looking, I said my mom saw the injury, and she was like, what injury? And then I said like I motioned to the black eye, and she was like, oh wow, like she's kind of like mocking like how small it looked. She was like, it's not that big a deal. And with her, it was kind of like, because she's someone who's been assaulted a lot, so I kind of felt like comparing my thing to her thing, like maybe she's like that she's had more severe looking stuff, and she never said anything, and she was like, I shouldn't have reported him, and we're a family, you shouldn't do that. And she was the one who had reported my dad in the past, so I at first thought, oh, maybe she would understand my point on this. And she was saying, she kind of kept going back and forth. She was so up and down when I spoke to her. She was so emotional and up and down. So she was like, yeah, you're right. But then she was also like, but you have to drop it. And it was just like, it was so much happening at that. And then I didn't really want to speak to her that much. But her reaction wasn't as bad as my other sister's reaction. We just kind of, I said like I didn't want to talk to her anymore, and we just like left it at that. I then saw my dad like a week after the attack. I saw him, and he was trying to get information about what happened. He spoke to me in a really calm way. He didn't say I was like in the wrong for reporting him or anything. He was just like, he inspected my face with a torch and a magnifying glass, and he said he couldn't see anything wrong with my face. The mark, the small black eye was there, but he said that he couldn't see it even though he was like looking at my face with a torch and a magnifying glass. He said that he couldn't see it because it wasn't that bad, I think. But just in general, I think everyone was like treating it as like less serious because the injury didn't look that severe. And he was asking me like, did he punch you or slap you? And I said it was both, but it was like mostly punching me. And I think it didn't look that bad based on what I was describing. It maybe didn't seem like he punched me that much. And he also asked me like if my brother was drunk or anything, and I was like, no, he hadn't been, like he doesn't drink or anything like that. And everyone was confused as to why he did it in the first place. But that was pretty much it with my dad. Like he wasn't yelling at me or saying that I was just as bad as him, not directly to my face at least. But that's pretty much what his reaction was. The sister that I mentioned before, we were talking about the conditions that I had to make me drop the charges, and they wanted me to drop the conditions that I had, and she was like, we can have a discussion on it, and I said that I wasn't interested in like, because my mom's in the hospital, they kind of want me to put it aside and let it go, and they kind of are making me seem like a drama queen because I didn't do that. And I said to her, I know that he doesn't believe he did anything wrong. And then she said to me, yes, he does. What is it, an apology you're after? And I replied saying no. And she said to me, he knows he was wrong. We all told him. And I said to her, I don't want an apology. And she said, he told my dad what he did was wrong. And I said, I don't want to speak to him. And she said that it's okay, don't speak to him. If you don't want to speak with him, then don't have zero contact with him. And we just kind of kept going on with that. And then she was kind of like trying to guilt trip me, saying, you know what you're both doing is making my mum worse. And she was like, she kept saying that why would you want to ruin his life? Stop thinking everything is final. It's all a discussion. And she was saying to me that I was being selfish, and if he was abusing me and like hitting me, then she would agree with me. Like, that's something that she said before. If he did it more than one time, then she would be on my side. I don't totally believe that, but that's kind of what she was saying. I said, why does it have to happen more than once? He should have known what I was gonna do, and he should have known that it was wrong before he decided to do it in the first place. And then she was saying that I was stubborn, and that what he did was a mistake. And she said, you are so unforgiving. I said to her it was not a mistake, and that was in reference to what he said to me during the attack. I deliberately asked him if what he did was an impulsive decision, if he was making a mistake by doing what he did, and he said no. And she doesn't know that because she wasn't there, but she's talking about stuff that she doesn't know. And then she was bringing up stuff about my parents. She was like, that my dad's eyesight is very bad. I was like, it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on here. But that's the type of stuff that she's bringing up. She keeps saying this stuff about we're both just as bad as each other. And I said that he's the one who committed a crime. And that's when she's like, his life shouldn't be over because of that. She says, I don't care about changing your mind or whatever. I think you're being incredibly selfish. This isn't about you or him. It's about my mum and dad, and what you guys are doing is upsetting to them. I just want to know your reasons. And then I said that I told you this was an ongoing thing for him. He did what he did because he believes there are no consequences to his actions. He doesn't believe he did anything wrong. He said to me, Johnny Depp didn't do anything to Amber Heard. And then punched me multiple times in the head. I said to him he was making an impulsive decision by hitting me, and asked him if he thought he made a mistake, and he said no, he doesn't think he did anything wrong. He's not sorry for what he did. He's just sorry he got caught. I will never accept an apology from him. And she was like that she doesn't understand what the ongoing thing for him meant. Like, because I was saying this is an ongoing thing for him. But I kind of just mean, like, I've seen him be violent to other people before. Like, he doesn't do it very much, but, like, there's, like, one incident in the past where he beat up a little girl, and I brought that up, and then she's kind of forgot about that incident because she didn't see it. And I said, but because it was, like, a long time ago, it was, like, second chances and stuff. But anyway, I was like, for him, he keeps saying that he doesn't think that it's a bad thing for people to beat up someone like this. Like, he said that kind of thing before, and it's just like the general attitude that he has. That's mainly what I was getting at, and that's why I said it is an ongoing thing for him. And then she says, but look, what he did was very wrong. I don't understand what made him think he can do that. And everyone is with you, and there is no way he will ever do something like this again. I understand why you don't want him there, but what I'm saying is that this whole situation is making my mum worse, and both of them are very upset with you. You don't have to forgive him or accept an apology or even talk to him until you think he actually is sorry or never, but this is not just about the both of you. And I said it was, quote, very wrong, close quote, but apparently you guys don't think he should suffer any consequences as a result. And she says, yes, because he's not an abuser, it was a mistake. If he was doing this to you, I would agree with you. I don't think you should ruin his life over this. And then I was like, because for me, I just think that if you do it one time, that means that you are an abuser. And based on the attack, it was like holding me against my will for like an hour and a half. I think that's enough to say that he's an abuser. So that's why I was like, it was not a mistake. And because he said that he didn't make a mistake, he said he was in control and he made a choice to do that. That's why I said what I said. And she's just focused on this idea of like he only attacked me one time, so I should just like let it go. And she's like, I know him more than you do. He's not perfect. So that's what she ends it on. But yeah, so anyway, I ended up dropping the charges, and the police, I sent them that online thing saying that I wanted to drop the charges, and they said that they would update my case and that a police officer would get back to me, but nobody has, and it's been a few weeks and nobody has responded to me to tell me what's going on. I don't know if the charges are officially dropped or maybe it isn't, because I'm looking at this thing that Amber Heard said in the phone call, where she said that the reason I haven't filed that police statement, which has been used against me, by the way, every day, the only reason I haven't done it is because I don't want to hurt you, and that means it goes out of my hands, and we have a third-party prosecutor come and a criminal lawyer come, and they went, the problem is hearing from you, like your biggest struggle is this is the most solid evidence case of domestic violence we've ever seen, and if you give this over to them or present any part of it, they will prosecute him. And maybe it's different in the UK, but I actually did make a police statement and explain the full situation and handed over the evidence. So I don't know if it's like out of my hands and maybe they will do it anyway, or maybe because I said that I will drop it, they have dropped it. I haven't gotten a total confirmation about what's happening. So it might be out of my hands, but it may take a few months before anything really happens. Because when I spoke to the police, he said to me something about like, will you be in the country like 6 months in the future or something like that. So yeah, I don't know how, they haven't really said anything to explain like what's gonna happen next, but I don't know. At this point, it's very unclear, but that's kind of like the reaction that I've had when talking to my family about it, and that's been everything so far. I thought that this story of what happened to me would be kind of helpful because I had this text progression of what happened, and you could see how kind of one-sided it is. It was just like one person making the choice to attack the other one. It wasn't a fight, and I wanted to explain this kind of idea of like how DV happens the majority of the time. It is like this kind of irrational reason, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, and you shouldn't really expect it to make that much sense. And I think when you listen to the testimony of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, they, for the most part, describe one person attacking the other person. They don't describe a lot of fights. And for me, when I listened to the tapes, I found it very strange that Johnny kept saying that he was getting into physical fights with this person who he describes as a little girl. That's something that he kept saying that he did. And then when you listen to the testimony, he's never describing a fight. He's not saying what he did in the fight. He's just saying that she attacked him and that he kind of restrained her or something like that, and those things, that's not something that you would typically describe as a fight. And I thought it would be helpful to explain to you that for Amber Heard's story, sometimes people say that what she's saying didn't make a lot of sense. Her stories maybe don't make sense. And the same thing happened to me when I explained the story to people. People kept saying to me that it didn't make a lot of sense, but nobody so far has disbelieved what I'm saying, because I had the threat from him, and like that bruise. And even though the story, maybe they would think you would have a more dramatic looking bruise, or maybe they would expect it to be that I said something outside of the text messages, and that never happened. We didn't speak outside of the text messages. It was kind of just him working himself up, and it wasn't really based on anything that I did, really, except for my, general annoying personality that he thinks I have. That's pretty much what it was based on. And I wanted to talk about this myth that people have that if someone got attacked, they must, people say that a lot, that she must have done something to provoke him. If they don't have a violent history, it doesn't make sense. She must have done something to provoke him. And something that was revealed, like Kanye West said that Chris Brown's career is basically over, and you have Rihanna, and everyone took her side. And he allegedly said that she must have done something to merit what happened to her, and a lot of people kind of have this belief, and I thought that my story could explain to you that that's not how it works. There's never really a rational reason for a man who is stronger and bigger than someone to choose to attack them in the way that they did. It won't make sense for them to say that they did it in self-defense, and I think what you hear is people being manipulative when they claim that this thing was a fight. Sometimes that's what a lot of these abusive men say, is that they had a fight. Like O.J. Simpson, all these people say that they had physical fights with these women who are much smaller than them, and I think that that's not true. I think they are trying to cover up for the actual irrational reason for why they did what they did. If Johnny Depp were to say to you that he decided to restrain Amber Heard because she was hitting him, that's something that could make sense to people, or push her away. Those are things that make sense to people. But if he said that he decided to hit her because she laughed at his tattoo, people would be like, that's very weird. That doesn't make any sense at all. I don't understand that. But that's kind of the truth of what happens in a lot of DV situations. And I think people need to stop thinking that there has to be a rational reason for a man to hit a woman. In this case with my brother, even though a lot of people ask me if he was using drugs, if he was drinking, if he had a mental illness, people want to think that, but that's not the truth of why they do it. It's just because they believe that there are no consequences to this type of thing, because usually there are no consequences to this type of thing, and that's the reason why they do it. It's based on a sense of entitlement. They do have control over their actions, and they make a choice. Even if she hit him first, it still wouldn't make sense for him to attack her in the way he did. With Chris Brown, he says that Rihanna hit him first, and it doesn't make sense for him to attack her in the way he attacked her as a result of it. So I think that's why, but when it comes to the mutual abuse, this idea of a fight, don't take it too seriously, because if once someone has admitted that they hit a woman, you shouldn't believe their story, that they're telling you the complete truth. They can be manipulative, they can lie, to cover up from themselves and try to make themselves seem more rational than they are. And that's not the truth of what actually happens. Also with Prince Harry's accusation with his brother, he describes him attacking him and trying to make it into a fight, and Harry said that he didn't want to engage, and it was never a fight, but people keep saying in response, siblings fight. And even though that's never what was described, and we should keep that in mind, like in the testimony of what both of them said, they're rarely describing fights. Sometimes Amber Heard would say that she had a shoving match with him, but the majority of the time she's saying that he attacked. She says in the tapes, she tells him to his face that he beat her up, and Johnny Depp is the one who's always saying it's a fight. And I think that is suspicious. It's a way of like trying to minimize what he did and saying, okay, well, I guess we're both bad, and that's not the truth. They're not both. There's not a mutual abusive thing happening between them. I think it is more kind of a one-sided thing for the most part. I also wanted to bring attention to this incident, the final incident of assault, where she said that he threw a phone at her and then started hitting her. And she explains to her parents what happened, and she says that I didn't even raise my voice to him, let alone a finger. I called 911. Rocky rushed in because she heard me screaming. And then she says, her dad says, so he came to the penthouse and you were there. Had you arranged to meet there and then you got in a fight? I just don't understand. He like using the word fight, and she's explaining to her dad that what happened was not a fight. She says, I called him again. I said I was ready to talk. He was fucked up and delusional, claiming some ridiculous shit I had no clue of or how to make sense of. Then he started hitting me with the phone and threw me down and hit me in the head. That's when Rocky and then Josh rushed in. Cops came right after he split. That's all you need to know. If you text him or involve yourselves anymore in his life, I will never speak to you guys again. She says that he was crazy. I didn't even tell, more or less raise a finger to him, which shouldn't matter regardless. I am half his size. I have to file a restraining order and then official divorce on Monday. This is an incident where she's clearly saying that she didn't hit back. There are incidents where she does hit back, but this is one where she did not. And her mother said that was a good thing. It will help her in the future when they go to court. The fact that she didn't, that it was like a one-sided abuse type situation, and she said it shouldn't matter regardless, and which is true, because this idea of like it will never ever make sense for a man to say that he hit a woman in self-defense in a situation like this ever. It will never ever ever make sense. So she's right to point out the fact that she was half his size, because that's something that he would be using as an excuse to say, okay, I guess it's a fight, I guess it's both of us, it's the same, and that's how he would minimize what he did. And I think you should like take that into account in the future. Like that's how a lot of these men think, and their kind of belief system is like this. I think people, when they watched the trial, got confused by the drugs and alcohol stuff, because she was saying, oh, he becomes into a monster, it's a different person, and from my experience, I don't think it would be related to the drugs and alcohol. I don't think that that's the thing that makes him a different person. I think that could just happen regardless of if you do drugs or not. And maybe he uses that excuse and says, oh, I didn't remember because of I was on this and that. And she maybe does believe what he says, and he could just be lying to her, and he remembers very well what happened, and he's just saying that kind of thing so he doesn't get held accountable for what he did. that could be what's going on there. And maybe sometimes he does genuinely black out, but I think the majority of the time he has a good memory of what happened, and he remembers the violent acts that he did. Based on the things that he said on the tapes, it sounds like he does admit to some violence, and there's some quotes where like him saying that they physically abused each other, saying that that mutual statement where he said that she didn't make a false accusation. He remembers Amber calling out to Io to call 911 whilst it was happening. I think all those things suggest that he does remember being violent, and that he's just like blaming it on his like temper issue. Maybe he blames it on the drugs and alcohol a little bit, but that's not necessarily what it's based on, I don't think. I also wanted to address like this kind of myth about what your face should look like after you get attacked. This thing about comparing Rihanna's bruises to Amber Heard's, and someone used that image of their face, of the faces, and said that that's what Rihanna looked like after getting punched 3 times in a car while Chris Brown was seated and driving. She cancelled all her appearances for weeks after the attack. And then it shows Amber Heard with a full face of makeup the day after she had 2 black eyes and a split lip, after being punched, headbutted, and abused for several minutes by Johnny Depp. And with Amber Heard, she mainly describes being punched on the back of the head. She says that he hit her face, and I just wanted to show like my injury in comparison to their injury. I also have a picture of Dominique Dunn. This is the day after she had a physical altercation with her boyfriend, and she had visible bruises on her face and body, and she was playing a battered teenager, so that her bruises were real, but she showed up to work the next day looking like that. And I just wanted to show my bruise in comparison, because if I had to choose who I looked more like, I would say it was more like Amber Heard. But for me, what happened, I would say I was hit like directly in the face, punched / slapped directly in the face upwards of 5 times, but also like punched like upwards of 30 times in the head, but you wouldn't be able to see it because it was covered by hair. And explain to you like that's sometimes the injury just doesn't look that bad, and it's not right to say that Amber Heard's injury is less just because he hit her in a location that is like less visible, because he hit her in a location that is covered by hair. It means that her injury was less serious. And for me, a lot of people were kind of treating it that way, like my injury is like less serious because I was hit, because I didn't have like a dramatic looking bruise. People didn't really take it that seriously, except for the police. But like people in my family were like, "Oh, you shouldn't be so dramatic," and it isn't that bad and stuff like that. So I just wanted to show you in comparison, and that this is sometimes what an injury will look like, and it doesn't mean that I wasn't hit like with that much force, because I was hit with a lot of force, but that's all I had, and it was like multiple times. But I don't know why they think that you need to have like that. It's just spreading lies about what you should look like, and trying to say that you shouldn't be believed, even though that is the truth of what happened, and that's not right to say. And I also kind of wanted to comment on the Rihanna thing for a second, because she put Johnny Depp in her show a while back, and she got some backlash. And I was just thinking, like, she must be aware that people have been using her image and like weaponizing it against other victims, and saying if you didn't look like that, it doesn't count. And it's just like, it just seems like a stupid move for her to do that, because it makes you think, like, does she agree with that sentiment? Does she think your injury shouldn't matter? If, like, I was also kind of thinking in terms of my sister, because she was someone who's like badly abused before, and she was kind of like mocking me. It's like, oh, was that it? Like, I shouldn't be complaining. And I was kind of thinking, does she believe Amber Heard, and she still thinks that she shouldn't have like complained? Like, it's hard to understand what her beliefs are based on like the people that I know and what they think. It's hard to gauge what they actually think when they do stuff like this. But it seems bizarre that she's okay with people taking the image of her face and then saying this is a real victim and no one else counts. Like, why would she want to stand with that message? It's very bizarre to me that she would do that. Like, does she really agree with that idea? I don't know. It just seems, it's very, very not cool that she did that. And I don't know, maybe it's like because that's like, because with Amber Heard's story, she was like pounding on the back of her head, like, and she thought he was going to kill her. And just because he did it on the back of the head, it's kind of sending this message to, because abusive people are watching this, and they're kind of saying, they get this impression from people that they can hit women and no one's going to believe them if they do it in a location like that. And this is happening to other people. Like, there's been other stories like mine where Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's names get brought up because they're both public figures representing domestic abuse. Their names get brought up during these kinds of attacks, and the man thinks that they can get away with it. There's not going to be any repercussions because there's an atmosphere where they won't ever believe the woman's story of events if they're like, oh, it doesn't make sense. And in cases of domestic violence, she shouldn't really expect it to make that much sense. And saying that if she didn't have a perfect memory of what happened, then it's sketchy. Maybe it's self-inflicted, all this stuff. Maybe she did, like, saying that because if she has a mental illness, she may have done it to herself. And also in terms of like the people who've like been imitating the look of Amber Heard's bruises. If you look at Dominique Dunn, who was an actress, and she went to work with the real life bruises that they were gonna use makeup to imitate. You could get any person's any injury on a face. Like, you could recreate Rihanna's bruises if you wanted to. If you were determined enough, you could do that. So I don't see what point people are trying to make when they do that stuff, because any bruise can be imitated with makeup. And the fact that Amber Heard showed her like naked face, showed the minor bruises, it kind of brought more credibility to her story, because that is the truth of what a lot of DV victims look after an attack like this. I think her story makes a lot of sense based on my experience. You can be punched multiple times in the face and have a minor looking bruise, and that can be true from what I can tell. And I never saw a reason to doubt her based on things I've witnessed in the past and based on what happened to me recently. It all seems to make a lot of sense for what she's described. And it's really dangerous that people are spreading this myth that is not how you would look after the attack. It's very normal for people to go around, be able to work the next day, be able to cover the bruises with makeup, and act like nothing's wrong. Act like nothing is wrong, because a lot of people do it. You just don't know that that's what they're doing. And I just wanted to like share with you the truth of how it is most of the time. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the idea of like mental illness and how the trial has dealt with it, the bad things that they put out, which is the thing that got me interested in the case to begin with. Like early on, I said that I kind of didn't care like about the physical abuse that much because they made that statement, and he said that she didn't make a false accusation. I just kind of felt like she's got to be in the right, so I didn't really care about the details of what happened. But I said that if Johnny Depp gets psychiatrists in there to try to say that she's a crazy person, then he's dead to me, and that's what he ended up doing. What I didn't like about that is that even if someone has a mental illness, it wouldn't mean that it's impossible for him to beat her up. Like, just because, like, saying that someone has narcissistic personality disorder, if they're a sociopath, people are kind of acting like that makes you invincible. It means that there's no way you can be harmed if you have those mental illnesses, which is so stupid, so ridiculous. And I wanted to talk about, in my case, like stuff that was said to me, like about me being self-centered and selfish and all that. And I'm like, I'm not a stranger to you. You know these characteristics about me. Yelling at me, beating me up isn't going to change that. You must have known that, like my sister saying that I should think about his future and his reputation, and they should have known that I don't care about that sort of thing. I would never be concerned about that sort of thing. They should have been able to predict that that's the sort of person I am. And those kind of words like sociopath, though, like emotionless, like those kinds of words get thrown to me a lot, and I just don't think that because someone is like that, because they're not very emotional, because they are kind of like they don't care about other people that much, that doesn't mean that it's impossible for someone to physically attack them. So that's why I was always kind of like, I don't care how bad you think she is. It doesn't prove to me that he didn't do it. You know, people are kind of acting like just because she has these negative, just if someone has these negative characteristics, it makes it okay to beat someone up. Like, just because I have this sort of annoying personality where I just ignore everyone, that makes it okay to, you know, come and like interrogate me in that way and attack me. Like, people are thinking that it makes some sense to do that. And that's kind of where I had issues with my sister when she talked to me about it, like saying that his heart was in the right place. He was trying to do something good, and that I'm being malicious by reporting it. And I just didn't agree with her. I think the issue is like with the people trying to be controlling, because I get these kinds of interventions sometimes about like general personality things and people wanting me to change my personality, and it's like it's never gonna happen, but yet it's something that people keep trying to do. And at this point it led to violence, and and people kind of like brushed it aside, like, oh, it was just like a little mistake on his side, like he didn't mean anything by it, just he tried something and it was a mistake. And the issue would just, and I think that the issue is them kind of like trying to involve themselves in things that isn't something that they should be concerned about exactly. Like he just came in to give me his opinions on things I never asked for. That's the issue, in my opinion. It's not necessarily the physical violence, but people kind of think it's justified, like when they when they don't like your personality, like when it comes to mental illnesses, like anyone could like label you with this sort of mental illness, and then there's like this weird thing happening, like where people think that when you have that kind of mental illness, it's just like these bad things, people attacking you. It can make sense if you have borderline personality and all that. It makes sense for someone. Well, they'll be lenient if someone attacks you and think that you brought it on yourself, and that's the idea that I really didn't like that came out from this trial. Anyway, that's the full story, and I hope this topic wasn't that heavy. Everything's fine now. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the police because they haven't gone back to me, but that was pretty much it. And I just wanted to like explain like the wider implications of the trial, like some of the damage that has happened, how some men feel emboldened to do to be more violent because they don't think there's many consequences, that they'll face any consequences to their actions, because they probably won't, and a lot of people can't like talk about this type of thing, and they don't have a lot of evidence. And I wanted you to consider, like, for me, with the story that I had, like, if I didn't have the text message at the end where he threatened to do it, because I feel like I was very fortunate that he was stupid enough to threaten to do it beforehand, and a lot of people don't have that. And if I were to explain the story of like us talking about delivery and then him attacking me in this way, would people think I was being hysterical and that was all in my head, that I was being over dramatic, all that kind of stuff? Like, that's something like that you should consider, because that's how a lot of DV situations are. They don't make a lot of sense when you explain them. These are what the stories kind of sound like, and that's why Amber Heard's stories did kind of make a lot of sense to me. Like, it seemed like she was either telling the truth or it was either a really well told lie, because all the details made a lot of sense. It seemed like a very classic kind of story, what she said happened to her. So I think that's a reason why a lot of people still find what she said believable. And I hope people can like start dropping these myths, like take it back and recognize the damage that they've done by perpetuating these lies of like what your face should look like after you've been punched a number of times, like all that stuff. I think people should like take it back, and I also hope that I've like shed some light into how some people react when you talk about this kind of thing. Like, even when they do think it's true, there isn't any difference between when you think it's true versus when you think it's a lie. People still act negatively. Like, when you try to hold the person who did it accountable, they think that you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't ruin their life over something like that, and they put the blame on you, and that's a pretty common thing. Like, sometimes people are saying that Amber's family was siding with Johnny and they wouldn't do that if they believed her, and it's very obvious based on the messages that they do believe what she's saying, but they just think that he can change and that she should just stick around and wait for him to change. Like with my sister, when she spoke to me, she said, "Oh, he promised he'll never do it again," and I said to her, "That's what they all say," and I didn't really care about that. As like the fact is that he shouldn't get away with it, even if it is that he did it one time. You still shouldn't be able to get away with it. But you know, they kind of disagreed with me, and it's bad timing based on my mother. And that was also something that was used against me, like calling me selfish, like saying it's bad timing. And and which was kind of similar to what happened in her situation, saying that she shouldn't do this to him right now because his mother just died and all that stuff, and she's stressing him out for no reason, and he just had this tragedy. And people have been saying the same thing to me, that I'm being over dramatic, and by like taking it this far, and that I shouldn't have done all that. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to explain all that, and this idea of like her the being manipulative and being schemy. And I recognized that for me, yes, that I would be kind of a manipulative, schemy type person. I think that would be true to say to me. Like even now, like in making this video, someone could say that I'm being manipulative by doing this video and talking about this stuff, but it doesn't mean that the stuff that I'm saying isn't true. Like it did genuinely happen. So just because I've talked about it like this, you could say that I'm using it to get attention with blah blah blah, but it doesn't make it less true. And that's a criticism that was kept being thrown to her. Like I don't think there's any way you could look at a DV victim who's speaking out and say that what they're doing isn't in some way kind of being manipulative, that you can always throw that word on someone, and it doesn't really mean very much. You can always say that someone is being attention seeking when they say stuff like this, and it doesn't really mean that much at a certain point. So yeah, I just wanted to tell my story, and tell the truth and explain like what's going on, like that what happened with Johnny and Amber, it wasn't just them in a bubble. It does affect a lot of people in real life, and people should like take responsibility for the damage that they've done.
Tell my story, America.
Now,
Get it out there. Sing it from the mountaintops.
And for some people, I don't think it was that heavy a topic. I think maybe the story was kind of humorous for some people. But yeah, this is kind of what a lot of Johnny Depp supporters have been fantasizing about the entire time. I don't know at what point is it going to click for people that they've been on the bad side. At what point are they gonna recognize the damage of what they've been doing with these kinds of jokes? Because I saw this image where they photoshopped the black eyes on her supporters and said that's their future, and that was like when I actually did have a black eye and bruises on me, and it's very odd that they make these kinds of jokes all the time, and they fantasize about all these things that they say it loudly and proudly, and don't think there's anything wrong with it. And this general attitude, I really think it's emboldened a lot of men who maybe wouldn't have done this type of thing before to end up doing it. Like with my case, because there hasn't been a history of violence, I think the fact that I showed an interest in the case was a strong reason for why he did what he did. I think he was just trying to like do a show of like, see, and I'm gonna get away with it kind of thing. And I think that was a big reason for him doing what he did. And that's kind of like what people have been supporting this entire time, and I just wanted to explain that to you. I have a couple more videos about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp that I had been in the process of making, but I stopped because the settlement came out. So I thought like now's not the right time to put that out. And also there's been a lot of stuff happening in like my real life, so I'll get around to finishing them at some point. So yeah, but that's everything. So goodbye for now.